Hey, how's it going? My name's Matthew, aka EZBOT. I'm here with Toby, aka Ybot. Two bots here. And today, Toby's going to be showing me a bunch of his music that he's been designing with the Digitone and a modular synthesizer. I'll just pop down and take a look at that really quick. This is his setup. Um, Toby's a fantastic local artist here in Seattle. I've played a bunch of shows with him. Love playing shows with Toby. I mean, we're talking really, really great music. I love it very much. And he's using the Digitone, which I've recently taken out of my sets. Not that really. I've been doing it for a while, which he's shaking his head at me because
Disappointed in you, Matthew.
he's disappointed in me. And I do miss it so much. And I'm very excited for the idea of a Digitone 2 coming, hopefully. Fingers crossed. We want it so bad, Elektron. Please give us a Digitone 2. We'd be so happy to have Digitac 2 features on. You have a Digitac 2.
No,
Oh my God.
I'm just a one all across the board.
We need to get you a Digitac 2.
I know.
You'd really crack out on that.
Probably.
You would. So anyway, I'd be just so happy to hear the music that you make with it. Toby and I are going to talk about the Digitone 2. I'm actually going to let Toby do most of the talking because that's what we do on these in the studio streams. And I'll be asking some questions about workflow and sound design. Toby may even take us through a patch from scratch. Definitely going to be playing a bunch of music for us using the Digitone as modular synth and analog heat doing performance effects and saturation, right?
Yep.
Okay.
The poor man's Octatrack.
The poor man's track. And I'm excited to see how that goes. Actually, I know how it goes because you do a great job with it. And we'll talk about that too, like your performance effects ideas.
Yeah, sure.
But okay, let's turn it over to Toby a bit, and just to get us started, walk me through your setup. What's going on here? Maybe a little bit of the audio routing, but really conceptually, what is happening here? What's playing what?
Sure.
Sounds.
Yeah, so my kind of default live setup is always pairing an Elektron box with some sort of modular. Sometimes I'll do like maybe just Digitone or maybe just Digitact, but I really like adding a little bit of extra sauce with the modular. So in all of those configurations, though, the Elektron box is always the brain. So I know I talked about it on my very first live stream with you at Patchworks, but that's accomplished with my fancy little cable. I like to use a small case, so I don't like to sacrifice HP for a MIDI module. So I'm not doing any sequencing between the two boxes. I'm kind of letting them be their own thing.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about.
Yeah. So I've tried doing sequencing, like doing MIDI sequencing from Elektron boxes to modular, and it works. It's cool, but it's like not really for me, for my process. So I like them to kind of be their own instruments to support each other. And usually the modular is in a supporting role for me. So
I actually really like that. Conceptually, I haven't really thought about that. Like, it almost reminds me of like a MOBA aspect of like what's carrying the music versus what's supporting the other instruments.
Yeah, so the Digitone is the carry, the modular is the support, and the analog heat is jungle, obviously. In this case, like when I'm doing a set where I'm using the Digitone for most of the melodic and rhythmic content, the modular tends to sit in a configuration where it's like adding a sort of almost a sample-based or a texture layer, which is a lot harder to get through the Digitone. You can add texture to your different sounds that you're making, but because of the limitations of the Digitone, you don't want to necessarily commit one track to just like a white noise, like LFO'd white noise sort of thing, when something like the modular could do that really well. So
that's true.
So in this case, I'm clocking my modular with the aforementioned cable, and that kind of controls some rhythmic modulation that happens throughout the system. But the main core of the setup is the make noise morphogene that has a bunch of samples on it. So between like melodic samples or rhythmic samples or just sort of textures, I kind of choose that. That goes through a filter, and then that goes into beads for effects. So reverb, granulation, just kind of more building on that texture. And then the kind of thing that I don't normally do, but what I've done in this situation is I have the a clone of the Mutable Instruments plats in there, because I am actually doing sort of some rhythmic tonal stuff, which I don't usually do, but I've been really into the modal resonator mode on the plats recently, so that's another sound that's kind of a little bit harder to dial in on the Digitone. So I'm reaching for the modular definitely as a support role, taking up some of the roles that normally if I was using a Digitact or something like that, playing samples back, or some types of synthesis that are a little bit harder in terms of what the Digitone can do. So Yeah, that's kind of the setup. Then all that the modular gets routed into the Digitone, audio wise. That way I can use the built-in effects. So for example, we've got the samples from the Morphogene come into beads for like a cool reverb, and I can do delay there. But the Platts is kind of like all on its own. It's just going straight into my mixer here. So it would just be kind of dry, but on the mixer inside the Digitone, actually use the delay and reverb to put some extra vibe to what's coming out of the modular as well. So the nice thing is that all the stuff that's in the Digitone is already going through those as well, through those send effects. So it kind of helps glue things together, like put them in the same space as well, which is nice. And then the other advantage is that the Digitone mixer has master overdrive. So like the Digitact has the compressor, the Digitone has the master overdrive. So you can get really kind of crazy.
Does that
if you
mean
want
that
to.
with the analog heat, you're not saturating as much?
Well, that was one of the things when we were testing. It was kind of like the signal was real saturated, and the setup that I have on the heat, which we can talk about next, is using the saturation circuit, and I have to be careful. Like the dial on the master overdrive goes up like a lot, but I can't go past about like 13 without it getting really crazy between the combination of the master overdrive on the Digitone and the saturation circuit on the heat. So yeah, to speak to your point about the heat, what I have going on here is a little bit complex of a setup. Like the heat sounds great if you just turn one of the circuits on and just kind of leave it on, but I actually have using the envelope follower here to kind of get a quasi like sidechain pumping thing. See, I'm trying to do two things that the EZBOT performance template does. The sidechain pumping, and then the main function of the Digitone or of the analog heat, outside of just gluing all the sound together and making it sound great and getting you really hot levels, is using the filter to do sort of high pass sweeps. So performative sweeps where in the type of music we make with electronic music, sometimes you'd find like using for a transition or like a drop or whatever that case may be. It's really fun to be able to do that. Although my last performance, I actually totally fudged it. Instead of sweeping the button, I changed the filter type from high pass to low pass or notch or something like that. So all of a sudden, all of my sound just cut out, and I was like, "Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen."
Oh,
but,
yeah.
yeah,
I've had way worse things happen at my live shows.
it's fair. There's always something, and the best thing you can do is just brush it off if you can and recover. So, yeah, so that's what the heat's doing. Yeah, it does kind of like the envelope following to change the drive. It's got some EQ, obviously makes things sound really great, and then you can add some dirt to the filter, which makes it sound really kind of gritty and cool. So yeah, this is just like the sound gooderizer, like
it's kind of nice for like I feel like the Digitone and the analog heat, there's such a great pairing because I mean the Digitone obviously is digital tone, which I imagine has always been what the name implied. But it could use a bit of saturation, not the digital saturation. A bit of that analog saturation goes a long way on the Digitone. I've always felt like, and I used to pair the analog heat with the Deluge.
Oh yeah,
Because I felt like the Deluge was always missing a little bit in terms of its sound quality. And as soon as I saturate the Deluge, it's like it really comes to life. And that same thing happens with the Digitone, even though I think the Digitone needs it less. Because it really is a just crystal clear, great sounding synthesizer.
Right, and we can experiment with that later. We can play something and turn the heat on and off and do an A/B test. But I guess the last thing to say about what you were saying with the analog heat is that, what was it? I had some quip to share with you.
Saturating the digital circuits.
Yeah, saturating the digital circuits. Yeah, I can't remember what it was. It's just rad. I love it.
It is rad.
Yeah.
It's very useful. Like there's just so many use cases for it. Mark 1s. If anybody doesn't have a Mark 1, just grab a Mark 1. They're so cheap right now, and they do everything you need from even the Plus Effects. Like, I use one thing from Plus Effects that's not in the Mark 1.
I have heard that is it the Warble?
I don't use that.
Oh.
I use the bass to mono.
Oh, okay.
Like I use it
that would
at
be
the
really...
end of it. Like we're running, and we have two heats.
Yeah, we're going heat into heat. Yeah, the bass to mono would be really cool. Someone, I think it was Duffy, Planar Drift, uses the Warble mode. It kind of gets this like vinyl crackle record effect. Oh, it sounds so
like
good.
All the music on a master level?
Yeah, on a master level. So like again, like in a situation where like you can kind of you can emulate that with like a sample if you were using a sampler, but in a situation where I don't have a sampler, it's like, ooh, it'd be nice to get a little.
And it's also cool on like the whole chain.
Yeah,
especially if you're doing some lo-fi stuff. Makes sense that Duffy would do that, considering Duffy does a lot of like really nice ambient
Yeah,
techno.
well, when I remembered what I was saying is one thing that I haven't done is we're talking about, how the master overdrive and the heat complement each other, is I haven't tried pushing the heat a whole lot. Like I've seen some really cool performance. Duffy did one where they're really using the heat more as a distortion rather than like a clean enhancer or something like that, and really getting really grungy, really hard.
Right.
It's crazy when you turn this thing up to like high crunch or high gain or round fuzz. It sounds crazy.
Yeah,
And
it
I don't
does.
know if it's not as applicable when you're running a whole mix into it, but like if you had one synth going in or like you had one element
That's
on the
what
digitone.
I think that's honestly where that's how it should be used. But on a drum machine. Like
Oh,
on a
yeah.
Percons or something. And this would be
Yeah.
that would be out of control.
That would sound totally insane.
What I think we should do now, just so that we can really suck people in, is let's hear some Ybot tunes.
Okay.
I would love to hear one of your tracks and then maybe talk. That'll spark up some more conversation for us.
Okay. I've got kind of two tracks that move into each other.
Let's do them both.
Okay, yeah, these are new tracks. I've just been playing around with the Digitone after Matthew asked me to come on the stream, but like there also there represent some things that I wanted to kind of work out for myself for the Digitone as well. So in terms of sound design, stuff like that. So yeah, I'd love to play.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Woo! Dude, that new track is such a banger. I mean, were they both new?
Yeah.
Oh man. There's some that's when you transition from 120 over to 140, which is what you were talking to me about before the stream started. Oh my god, that chord progression
Yeah.
was just buttered.
You like that?
It's so good.
Yeah, I have something to we can like start there to talk about. Like that's definitely something that I've been working on. You know, I went to school. Thanks everyone. We've been reading your comments, by the way. I went to school for music and I took music theory classes and it was really cool and really valuable. But honestly, I think as an artist now, like I had a big break between when I went to school for music. I went for more like traditional music, like in studio recording, stuff like that. But then I went and did a bunch of experimental music stuff. And what I found when I returned to trying to be an artist is that these days it's nice to like have that as a foundational knowledge. But if I try to think too much in that zone, it just gets in my way. Especially like when I'm writing a chord progression or something like that, I'll sit down and be like, oh, well, I can't use this chord because it's not right.
Or
like it's not
parallel
correct.
fifths,
Yeah, or like
right?
parallel fifths. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Or like, oh, this doesn't have the right voice leading or something. And like tools that are helpful for creativity, like scale mode, like on the electronic or on the Elektron boxes, can be really helpful, but they can also lock you into things that maybe you don't want to do, or like limit your creativity in a way that could be kind of a little bit negative. What I mean by that is like, you know, if you have chord mode on and you have a scale mode on, like it won't let you select different notes that are outside of like what that scale mode that you have is
On
selected.
the keyboard.
On the keyboard, yeah. So yeah, what I did was like I originally had wrote like kind of like a really sort of, to my mind, like kind of corny, like typical chord progression. And I'm like, this sounds okay. And like I had the sound design really good, but I'm like, it just doesn't like, it's not hitting right. And I'm like, well, what if I just like change around a few notes? And it like, I thought it sounded way better. So I think you were talking about this, right? Oh, my delay's all messed up. Yeah. So like some of the notes are like definitely out of like the key center of where they're supposed to be, but I guess like in a lot of ways I've found that that kind of became part of my sound, is like finding these kind of like little, that's like the Ybot method, I guess, to
What is
to
the
songwriting.
method?
So yeah, so like I start a lot with bass, or like a bass sound design, or like a chord progression.
Like a preset and then you modify, or do you start from scratch?
No, well, both. Sometimes with drums on the Digitone, I usually use or start from a preset.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
It takes a really long time. Like that's like very specific type of FM that I'm not super interested in to like figuring out how it works. Like I can do it before. Like one of the things that I'll do for sound design is like just like you can randomize all the pages.
Yeah, and you'll
just like
find a click
yeah,
or
so you can
something.
like in the synth page you can like randomize stuff, and it's like usually it's ear shriekingly loud, really way too high pitched, but you can find some kind of sweet spots and kind of go from there. But yeah, for drum sounds, I'm usually taking from the presets and modifying them. Some of them I'll the modified versions I'll save for myself. There's also another trick that I believe I use in one of these tracks that I can show off, where you can save a sound as having the arpeggiator turned on. And for drum sounds, that's really particularly helpful because it takes one trigger, you set the length as long as your bar, and then it will play like a 16th note pattern or whatever was in the arpeggio.
Right.
And it saves you triggers to be able to lock other sounds to.
Right.
So you only have that
You
one
need
going.
as much
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah, it's really compact. Like obviously there's more than 4 different sounds going on in these tracks.
Way more.
So yeah, you have to kind of like interweave and then balance that with the voice stealing. So yeah, but with basses, leads, pads, I usually I will usually just start from the default sign.
It's like a completely different workflow from all the other boxes, including analog. Well, analog 4 is probably the closest thing to it, but like considering that you actually can parameter lock a note or a different synth sound on a track, and it will play over the next sound, which is something you can't do on any other box. And that's so unique and powerful on the Digitone that it has the voice stealing. And which is why it sounds so full, and you really only have 4 tracks and a little skiff. I mean, this might as well not even be here. I feel like if we didn't, I mean, that's not true, but like if we didn't have this on the screen, then people could see just how small and how few voices you're using for such a large sound.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean it's great for like a gigging musician too, because
It's great,
this
yeah.
all fits into like, this has a briefcase, this has a Carhartt lunchbox, and it's like I can just show up and be like ready to go. You had a lot of cables ready for me though, so like I got that's a whole other thing. But yeah,
still,
it's nice. It's nice to be able to play a show with you know, and just show up with a small bag and just go to
It's
it,
always
so.
very impressive to me. Like, because the truth is, like, getting familiar on the Digitone is probably the hardest, I think, of all the Elektron boxes.
It has a really steep learning curve.
Yeah.
I started with the Digitact, and then you sold me on the Digitone.
I did.
Yeah, you did. You sold me my Digitact, and you sold me. I don't know if you were there when I bought my Digitone. Maybe I was. Maybe you were. Oh yeah, I think it was you and Ray were there.
Nice.
Yeah.
But working at the synth shop here in Seattle.
So yeah, it was definitely, I felt pretty comfortable with the Digitact at that point and like the Elektron sequencer, but there's so much more to learn. And then once you learn like how the synthesis engines work and you know how that voice stealing works, and the fact that in order to get a deep, like in order to just use this as a groove box, like I think a lot of people would be potentially turned off because when you have a lot of elements to play with, like on the Digitact, it's like I can have all these drum sounds, like that's really cool, and it's easier to like think of them separated out.
Yeah.
You can still do that with this, but you have to kind of prescribe to a specific technique.
It's very meticulous.
It is meticulous, yeah.
Like, incredibly. In fact, as you were saying that, I drew a conclusion or a comparison to the Octatrack workflow.
Okay.
So, like, I actually think this is probably the closest thing in the Digi format to the actual production workflow on the Octatrack. And the reason I say that is because on the Octatrack, you're not voice stealing, but you're constantly parameter locking on a per step basis different sounds and slices from sounds to try and get as much real estate as you can out of every track. And that's not something that you do on like a Digitact 2 or a Syntact. You just don't have to because you have so many tracks.
Right, exactly.
So on the Digitone, you really are like everything you can eke out of every little moment is so valuable. And you've done such a great job of doing it. You've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
I mean, you were like, when I think of the Digitone, like out of the people that I know personally, I think of you. And I think of, as far as the internet goes, I think of Ivar.
Yeah.
Ivar Treaty. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but yeah, I think of you two when I think of the Digitone. Because of the sounds that you make are just, I mean, the amount of sounds you get out of it it's pretty incredible. I've never heard you play music like you played this time in terms of like adding that like dubstep.
Yeah,
vibe
that was new for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that was new for me to hear from you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love dub and dubstep music, dub techno, like all the kind of genres that have spun out of like that dub reggae kind of subgenre. I listened to tons of dubstep when it was really popular, kind of like maybe a little bit before it was popular.
Shoot.
But yeah, I love like bass music, and you know, when I was not into hardware music at the time, but I was trying to make music in Ableton, and I just like smacked my head against Ableton. I didn't really click with it at that time, but I knew that a lot of the artists that were making dubstep were using like FM synths. So I kind of had this like return to, because I don't listen to like dubstep or dub music as often as I used to, and it's evolved a lot. It's really different than what it was back then.
Right.
But I still really enjoy that kind of music, and I've been listening to it lately, and like there's just been a couple tracks that have this insane like bass sound design. I'm like, oh man, like it would be so cool to make sounds like that. I'm like, wait, I know they were using FM. I have an FM synth, like, and there was actually a discussion in your Discord about like, hey, does anyone know how to make like kind of wubby bass sounds? And it kind of got my brain thinking. So, yeah, I kind of took
you made that.
Yeah, that's my patch.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
Yeah.
You know, actually, on that note, so like, okay, you listened to dubstep. Growing up, I was pretty anti-dubstep,
Fair.
I'd say. There was like, I mean, we were like the rock guitar band folks, so like we were pretty anti just anything that's cool now. Just because we were jerks, I guess. But I really think like the melding of all the genres, like as time goes on, dubstep has found a place in my heart, particular with some of the sound design and bass sound design. Like that wub wub sound in there is was really tasteful to me. And like a lot of times when I think of like a dubstep sound, I think of like fax machines and just like crazy obnoxious noises. And that was all very clean and tasteful and just like really, really nice.
Thank you. Yeah, we can listen to that if you want.
Yeah, please. Like, yeah, let's show me this patch. And
so let's listen to.
And I wonder if I could do it on my Syntax, because we do have an FM synth in there, but not one like this. Okay, no, you can't do that on there.
So, this has. That's why it's doing that.
Yeah, it has all your performance baked into it at this point.
So this I would just to speak to the tastefulness. Like I'm a lot more influenced by earlier dubstep, like before
Skrillex.
Let's say before Skrillex, before like the robot. Yeah, UK dubstep and US dubstep. So I got started. I got turned on to some big like UK artists, like Rusko, Joker, Banga, Scream, and they kind of had these more. They were a lot more influenced by like reggae dub, and a lot of like those bass lines to me, they feel like just like really fat, distorted sine waves. Like it's just a really kind of overblown. So like, and that's what's great about designing on the Digitone as well, is you're starting with a sine wave.
Right.
So kind of like going from there. So I guess we can just step through this. So yeah, with sound design on the Digitone, I kind of try to, you always start on algorithm 1, which is kind of unfortunate because it's kind of boring. But so I start with kind of like dialing in how the voices are kind of stacked, because you kind of like when you start to adjust the ratios and the carrier waves and you start to add some FM to it, you start getting like, you have like a low tone, mid tones, high tones. So I try to balance that out first. But that's like kind of the coolest part about sound designing on the Digitone, is that because you have this filter, you can hide bits, like the big sparkly FM stuff, you can hide it behind the filter,
right,
and reveal it as a surprise. Look at this. Like, this is cool.
Yeah. As like, yeah, it's a way to like build energy.
Yeah, exactly. So if we listen to this one, like, and if I, let's just save this first. If I turn the LFO off, there's a lot, like the filters turn quite a bit down. If we turn this up, there's like a lot of stuff up at the top end that happens. So if we can kind of use the filter to hide that and reveal it at choice moments. The other thing too that, like, I think when you get deeper into Digitone sound design that you start to do is to use the envelopes for the FM amount as well. That's kind of like what's really essential to this.
That's like kind of what's real essential to FM in general, like a good FM patch in general.
Right. It gets a little bit harder with shorter sounds, but again, you can still kind of like,
that's true.
You can use it for transient shaping. Yeah. Like, I don't know if I have a sound in here that does it, but you can have it like a really fast envelope where you're adding a bunch of FM, or you're adding a bunch of like level of one of these, and you're going to get a lot of like higher frequency content. So you can kind of like build a little transient for like a bass sound or something like that. What
would be nice is if we had a speed parameter for how quickly it went through the envelopes.
Yeah, it's really not very intuitive. And yeah, you have no control over it either. So this patch, I guess another couple of things to talk about it is I have portamento on. So you can bend between notes. So that's how you get some of the, what pattern are we in? Yeah, this is a good one too. Oops.
Yeah.
And I usually don't put effects on my basses, but like it just had this like tasty high-end stuff happening. So I usually filter off my my delays and reverbs so that the low end isn't going in there anyway. So
I watched you like while you were performing, and the person who, like, just talking about other people that I watch is like Dave Mack, for instance, spends a lot of time in his Master Effects section while he's performing. And I noticed you doing that a lot, which I don't when I'm playing much. I'm usually like futzing around on the Octatrack and stuff like that. But
well, this is again a replacement for the poor man's performance template. So like the thing that I do like to transition between between patterns or like change energy. And between the people we know, the king of this is Michael Riza, is Michael Squilla. We played a set once where he did the craziest thing I've ever heard happen in a delay page. Like, I don't know what he did still, but I think he was like turning the time knob and it went down to like nothing, and it just like turned into like audio rate, and it was crazy. And that you get the cool thing when you change patterns when the parameters snap. Yeah, so it snapped back from this crazy thing to like a more sane delay and sounded totally insane. But yeah, what I do for performance, because I don't have like a big delay send or like some of the effects you have, is I usually keep my delays are usually like the bass filter looks like this, like quite high passed, but I have it turned down a little bit, so there's that little trapezoid shape. So what I do is my feedback is usually like 50, 60, depending on the sound design. If it's really kind of like ambient spacey, it's going to be higher, but once you turn past 100, you get that feedback loop. Yeah. And what I do is you can either kind of like blast it up for a second and then turn it back down, or leave it like right at like 100 or 103, and it starts to slowly build up, and then I'll perform the filter, so it kind of like sweeps down the delay. Kind of, you can even mute the track that's like maybe it's going into the delay, but then you're still playing with filtering that feedback as sort of a performance gesture. So I didn't bring it with me today, and I haven't played with it honestly because I broke my iPad. I have a little iPad mini, and I stepped on it, and it cracked everywhere, so it's not great to touch anymore. But what I was doing was building a touch OSC interface. You could plug it straight into the Digitone or the Digitact, and it just works. Yeah, and it basically would just provide an interface for this page. Wow. So, because all these are controllable via MIDI CC, so I could do the filters, do the delay sends without having to dive, because it's two layers deep, right? It's like you can't just access it with one button push. You've got to do.
Yeah, hopefully they'll add what they did in Digitact 2, which is that you can actually go through pages with the arrows.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Which is pretty sick.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So, yeah, that delay as a performance technique, for sure, is the thing. Oh yeah, someone in his chat is saying that the level of B is so confusing on the Digitone. 0 to 49 is B volume, then above that is B is full and A is increased. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Fortunately, there's like there's a feedback for there's a visual feedback for that when you're turning B. I think once you get past a certain point, it'll show you that it's only affecting one of them. But yeah, it is an interesting implementation of FM, that's for sure. But yeah, this was a really fun bass to design for sure. The other thing too, did I do that here? No, I didn't. One thing that I do with basses, and maybe we can like design a bass sound.
I would love that.
Is there's a page that probably, well, I don't know, not many people go into, but if you press the Syn 1 page useful. Second, you can detune the operators from each other. And if you use small amounts, you can get these really cool like unison chorus effects.
Things start really
you combine that with the chorus effect, and it's just like you get really, really fat really quickly.
Yeah.
The other thing that's useful with this as well, and just generally with how you arrange the ratios, is we're talking about voice stealing. Like sometimes I love to like have chords playing in pads, but that's like one voice per note. So if you're doing like a crunchy jazz chord, you're using 5 voices for one chord.
Right.
And if you're trying to sustain it, like that's crazy. So like, you know, if you were using a more expansive setup, like you could just sample that in the Digitact and like play the chord back on the Digitact, whatever. But one thing that I've started to do is use less notes in the chord, but set up the sound so that it has like a fifth in it. So you're hitting the root note and the fifth.
Yeah.
So you can kind of stack 2 notes and get a deeper chord. It changes like kind of the songwriting part a little bit, because you maybe can't quite get that note that you want. Or the other thing you can do is you like I think I did a little bit in one of these tracks. There was like a sort of like a sus resolution that I was doing, but not sus like Among Us, but like a suspended chord. Yeah. But
Among Us.
Yeah. But I didn't want to hold this note out the whole time, so I just like sent the heck out of it to the reverb and the delay and just played it for a short time. It came in, it came out. So it was occupying one voice for that moment, but once it goes into the effects, it's out of the voice.
You don't need it anymore.
So and then the other thing, you mentioned it right as we first started talking about, I wanted to talk about was the pivot technique with the tempos.
From the 120 to 140 section.
Yeah. So that's something that I've been experimenting with. It's something that happens in the DJ world. It's called pivot mixing, or sometimes like polyrhythmic mixing, where you use math. It does involve some math, a calculator. So like, fortunately, I was using two numbers that are very easily divisible by each other. But so what I did was, this first track was in 120 BPM. That was this one, as a reminder. So in this last pattern, I have this polyrhythmic pattern happening on track 2. And so it's, if we look at it, it's 5/16. So it's 5 out of 16 steps. I finally learned what CH.
I was about to say, it looks like, hey, you're
I finally figured it out. Yeah, I was playing with Mike Ariza, and I was asking how long a pattern of his was, and he's like, "Oh, it's infinite." I was like, "Well, but how do you change patterns when it's infinite?" Because I had tried setting it to infinite before, like doing some ambient stuff, but then I could never change patterns because it would just go into flashing mode, and like it didn't know how to change because I hadn't set the change length.
I know. Everybody thinks it means channel.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been using the Digitone and the Digitact, for that matter, for almost 5 years now, which is insane. But yeah, just recently learned that. So I can finally have these perfectly polyrhythmic,
really great for the tunes that you make.
Infinitely repeating patterns. Yeah, basically, like, I do this in almost every track. So I need to go back and change all my Digitone projects. But yeah, so anyways, 5/16 in this one, and we're at 120 BPM. I'll leave this unmuted so you can kind of like hear the how the transition works. So what we do is we take 120, we divide it by 6. No, we divide it by 5.
You're already over my head.
Yeah, so 120 divided by 5 is what? My math. Hold on.
I don't go for it. Yeah, get your calculator.
Okay. Yeah, it does require a calculator. My friend who's a DJ who is doing this says that when she's DJing with
24.
Yeah, 24. No, that's not right.
Oh, wait, what? Shouldn't it be 24?
Okay, hold on. Maybe
24. Michael says, yeah. Should be 5 goes into 100 20 times, and then 5 into 20 4 times.
Okay, maybe you're right.
We're teaching people like,
yeah, dang it, math.
7th, 8th grade math? I don't know.
Yeah. So anyhow, despite how the numbers line up,
I'm still curious, like, how does it work?
Well, basically the polyrhythm shifts from being 5 out of 16 notes to 6 out of 16.
Oh.
So
I still don't understand it, but
yeah. So we're changing the pattern here, and we're gonna change.
It's less obvious when you don't have that hat going.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point, that I should be able to change back and forth between these, and you would not really notice.
Right.
You're gonna notice it now because on this track I turned the delay and stuff up more.
Right.
But there
we go. Yeah, you're right. It's like, it works.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden you're in this totally different vibe.
So good.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I've seen it. I've seen DJs do it. And
how does this DJ do it? I don't know enough about DJs.
Same kind of thing. Like with DJ mixers, you can set a loop. So you can
they set a loop point that's 6 steps or 6/8 notes or something, or 6/4 notes.
And then they've got their phone out and calculator, and they've got a little bit easier. They can like slide, to a more exact tempo. Like the Elektron boxes can do like 0.1 or tenths. Sorry, it's my 7th grade math. Tenths. Yeah, see, I know. But also it just so happens that dubstep is basically 140 BPM. So it was like, oh, that's perfect.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, that was that sort of technique there. So yeah,
that's still hard. I'm still crunching that in my head.
I am still too. Like, to be honest, I
like, you know that it works, but
I know that it works.
it's still...
I mean, I saw this video and my friend has talked to me about it, and she's just like wants to do it. Actually, she just did it in a set, her most recent set she did. But I was like, I should be able to figure this out on the Digitact, and I tried it, and I was like, oh yeah, I got it. This was before I learned change length, actually, and it's way better now that I know how that works. But this is only the second time I've done it, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna throw it in there.
It worked.
It worked really good. Yeah,
I, mean, I was looking for it.
Yeah.
So I was very curious about it, and I could hear it because it did what your not infinite version of music was doing.
There was
It
a
did
little
reset,
yeah.
but it sounded great.
So yeah, 6-step length in the new tempo, and there's some massaging. Like, it doesn't work out exactly as easily as it would if you were just looping something, because you're not looping something. You're creating the illusion that something is looping. So it's a little bit like the sequences are a little bit different. So like if we looked at the here's the 6/16 version, the triggers are on 1 and 4, and then they're on 2 and 5 here. So I had to change them a little bit. And
So, okay, you went in and you were like, until it worked.
yeah, and there's a little, even though the velocities are the same, there's a little bit of like one of them has like an emphasis. So in my head, it sounds like da 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 da, and the other one sounds like da 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 da. So that was a little weird to work out. It's I mean, it's uncharted territory. Let's be honest.
For me,
like,
it's very uncharted.
Yeah.
because I've never tried that.
Yeah.
In any of my tunes.
Yeah, so it's really
I'll
cool
go
though.
like twice the speed, or like there's a modulation you can do, and I have that like Octatrack performance effect that I'll do sometimes where it modulates. I'll record something and I'll bring the whole thing down like a fifth, and it just works timing wise and pitch wise for all the things. It's so weird, like the math for that. I don't understand it, but I know it works every time.
Yeah, music is math. Math is hard.
Have you seen that Ableton video? I forget who does it, but it's an Ableton thing. It's by Ableton, and it's like one of their conferences, and it's this...
Oh, it's Adam Neely.
Adam Neely does the polymetrics. He speeds up the drum patterns.
Yep, and it becomes
a 7th chord, and a major chord. It absolutely was just like this. That's why I'm so infatuated with like quantum mechanics and like science fiction in general.
Yeah,
it's because I keep seeing stuff like that where I'm like, everything is so related and relatable.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Absolutely.
And that was kind of a mild segue into quantum. Now we can talk about quantum physics for the rest of the stream.
Awesome, perfectly. Yeah, did you hear that local reality isn't real?
That sucks.
Yeah, it changes everything, to be honest.
Wait, are you being serious right now?
Yeah.
That's what they're
Quantum
saying?
physicists, they just I think they just got a Nobel Prize for a couple years ago that
Saying
proving
that
local reality isn't real.
Oh man.
Real is a loaded quantum physics term,
What
right?
is,
It basically the Schrodinger's cat. It's basically that's
that makes
actually
sense to me though.
Yeah.
So
like,
it says real is...
if you're not observing an apple, there's not actually any way to 100% for sure say that it's red.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So.
Hey, that was a good say. That was good.
Thank you.
That was good.
Thank
for
you.
us. We don't ever talk about.
Let's make a
respace
respace.
On stream. Next stream. New YouTube channel.
Yeah. Right. The other thing to say about that, like that technique that I've been working on, is that that's born out of not having something in my setup like the performance template or like an Octatrack, because sometimes I just like to, like, this performance was 8 patterns, right? 4 and 8. Sometimes it's a little bit too much for my brain to like spread out a whole track over a whole 16 patterns, like to step through everything. So I kind of try to keep it compact sometimes, especially for live performance, for new tracks that I'm writing, maybe tracks that I'm not necessarily going to release. Like I try to keep it compact so that I don't have too much to think about on stage, and I can focus on the other performance aspects. But that makes it hard sometimes to be able to transition and to keep the energy up between tracks, because I don't like to press stop. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah, because you do it too. Yeah, you kind of like, you have a setup where you can slam into the next track, and I think the performance template, like, what is interesting about it to me is that you can like make those things happen, these really cool transitions. So I'm always looking for ways to do that with what I have too. So like the filtering is one thing, the delay send with the filter is another thing, although then I have to go back to my patterns and like reset the delay. I'm like, why does it sound like garbage?
It makes it very interactive for you.
Yeah,
what you're doing.
But yeah, that pivot mixing is like another thing. It's like, okay, that's a cool way to be able to like, all I did like to make the transition happen was I was in the pattern, I muted everything but the polyrhythm, I pressed pattern change, and then it's like that same track in this one that I can just bring in the other stuff, and we're like into the next track. So it's like, that was really cool for me to be able to have that tool.
So, okay, so you brought up some good points, and now I want to talk about them a little bit.
Okay.
You said like you're keeping the patterns kind of small. Do you mean like the songs, the amount of patterns per
The
song?
amount of patterns per track. Yeah.
Okay, the amount of patterns. So like 4, is that on average like around the length of a song?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I played sets where it was one pattern or one bank
For one song.
one bank for the whole performance.
For the whole set.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And cool. And there's some advantages and some disadvantages, right? Like, well, I guess with the Digitone, I would imagine that you would want to have, I guess my go-to would be to have more patterns because I'd want to progress through the song. But then at the same time, you don't need as much because you can get so hands-on to alter your current song.
Right.
Right? You know, it'd be cool is if they added the Euclidean.
Oh, that'd be so
That'd
cool.
be really useful on the Digitone.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah, for
more
sure.
useful than it is on all the
Yeah,
other
you can
boxes
kind
they
of
put it
fake
on.
you can kind of fake it with the arpeggiator, but it's like
True.
not really the same.
True.
Um,
Well, you want to play us another song? Do you have more songs available that we can do?
I have like one more little, like, it's like more like a demo.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
I want to
let's do
hear
it.
as much music as possible because
Sure.
I'm all about it.
Let's get crazy. I'll try to find a different morphogene sound, and it'll sound like fun. Hey, it's in tune.
Always a good thing. Is that the morphogene?
Yeah.
That was doing the
Chord thing?
thing?
Yeah.
Whatever was going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, morphogene.
Okay. I was like, what is happening? But I also could hear like these like droplet sounds. Like
That would be beads.
that was
likely.
beats.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty lucky. I just like flipped randomly through my splices,
like,
and this is in tune with what's like.
Oh, that's what you meant when by this is in tune. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
what
no,
do you
it's
mean?
like I couldn't have.
That's a nice tone.
I couldn't have done better.
There were some really some of the sounds in here that you just demoed were so different from what you played earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And also sounded so good once again. That like bass patch.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is that a Toby patch?
Yeah, that's another, I think. Yeah, I mean, you can tell if you switch to it and it says sound whatever.
It's real nice.
Yeah, so that's another.
What's going on here?
Let's see. We're on algorithm 7 again, which was the one we used. That's what we used for our wub. So I guess the way to kind of like dissect these is
massive drive on it.
Oh yeah, like
which I think everybody is like really like who loves their Digitone finds themselves just like crank.
It's a way to get away from the really clean digital sound, because once you like, that's like the best way to make a Here, we'll just do a really quick
patch from scratch.
Yeah. Let's.
Yeah, take me on a patch.
Okay. The best way to make don't quote me on best. Dave Meck has a great. He has a Digitone masterclass that I've honestly been thinking about taking because he's smart as heck. His temp like his the patch that I'm using here is based on his like analog heat pack patch. But he has a great, like, I've seen excerpts from his masterclass where he's talking about like how to create the perfect sawtooth wave in a Digitone, which is like you're making a sawtooth wave out of a sine wave, so it's a little funky. So I'm not going to say best. He probably has the best one, but so what you kind of start with is changing the harmonics so that you're closer to a saw. You know that this kind of looks like a saw wave now, but you're not going to hear that. You still hear the sine tone until you change the mix. So like this side, you've got a sine, and this side, you've got something that sounds kind of more like a saw, kind of.
A little triangle.
Yeah, like maybe that's a little bit better. So, but if we take this one and we add drive to it,
now we're
like it's here it's off. As soon as you get 0.1, as soon as the drive circuit turns on.
That's kind of crazy. I didn't realize that 0.1?
0.1, yeah. As soon as it engages, it's like sounds that much different.
And usually, like what a distortion is too, is that it's just squaring that waveform. Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to picture like a little oscilloscope brain thing going on in my head of that sine wave, like going.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like the soft curves getting really sharp.
Yeah, yeah. So then, as soon as you have that, then you can work on this other side. So now you have a distorted sine, and you can start.
And that sounds a lot sawtooth on that side now too.
Yeah. So then, if you mix them together and you detune them,
oh, that's a cool sound. That sounds very 8-bit pulse width.
Yeah.
That sounds like pulse width modulation. That was actually how quickly we did that. It's a little pulse width modulation patch. I could hear that moving the squaring that was happening from the drive back and forth.
Right. And then if you get more.
That's cool.
And like again, you can LFO all these, so you can get some crazy sound design there. Yeah. But then, like if we do what we were talking about before, where we're going to offset the operators from each other a little bit. So now we've got some kind of crazy. This is actually a little bit
kind of swarmy.
Yep. And then you add the chorus to that.
It's so fast to
and
get.
You got
like,
stereo, yeah, and then
something big.
Turn the master overdrive up. Yeah, so really quickly you can get into some pretty crazy bass territory. Yeah, so like I wasn't joking when I said let's make a respace. Yeah, then the feedback helps with that as well too. You get into some.
Yeah, you made a respace in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, then you check.
Which is something I use the dual oscillator Syntact engine, analog engine, to make this sounding patch, which you did on the Digitone quite effectively.
Yeah, one of the best, like, again, I was talking about, like, I don't really care for algorithm 1. Algorithm 2 is pretty good for bass sounds too, because you can, because of the way it's designed, they're separate of each other. So B is on a Y and A and C are on X. So you can basically mix 2 different sounds together. So like if we wanted one sort of saw wave sounding, and then one sort of like a bass sound that sounded a little bit different, you can kind of separate them, and then on the left you only have the bass sound, and on the right you only have the higher sound.
Yeah.
And you can get some interesting things happening there. That works pretty well for that, what I was talking about too, where if you wanted to, to separate them in terms of like having multiple pitches. So like having a fifth.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then you can dial that in or out.
You could basically switch notes. Oh yeah, great way to. Sounds good.
Yeah, so that's kind of like designing a bass with cool chorus. The other thing that I've started to do as well, and just like maybe a reminder to folks, is like don't sleep on the setup menu.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know this until recently. I thought this was just on the Syntact, but the Digitone was the first to have this, is the Velocity mod page.
Right, yeah.
So the Velocity mod page is totally sick. Make sure that you're either recording with a velocity sensitive controller, or you're going in and changing velocity for your articulation and your patterns. Because not only can you change the curve of the volume modulation, velocity to volume, like you can have linear, you can have exponential or logarithmic.
Turn it off. What I do, like just to add to what you're saying, is turn velocity to mod completely off, and then go into your trig menu and turn velocity down, and then parameter lock the velocity on as a.
I didn't even know that you could turn it all the way off. I just learned that today. I didn't
nice.
I didn't go all the way left. I stopped at logarithmic. I'm like, that's enough. So yeah, you can turn it completely off. But yeah, if for those who aren't familiar, like maybe you're coming from a Digitact like I was, or you haven't used a Syntact before, this this works with the mod wheel as well. I'm in the mod wheel one actually right now. So if you're using an external controller or you have a Digitone keys, you can use that. But
good mention, Digitone keys.
People have been popping off in the Discord about, I don't know if you hang out in the Digitone channel, but well, people want it, people use it, people like it. There's a solid crew of the Digitone keys folks in the Discord. I'm like, I see you guys. I think it's cool. I played it at Patchworks before. The keypad actually feels pretty nice.
Yeah.
Like
it's like people were kind of like turned off by the form factor, but I think it's great because it's just the Digitone and a keyboard.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And it has individual outs for each track.
And it has individual outs for each track. And it actually takes advantage of this modulation setup, like you mentioned. Like, you really get to actually use this. Because you really can't.
Yeah. I wish that we could see this in, like, a quick performance menu, like on the analog heat or rhythm. Like, to be able to kind of, like...
Yeah.
Control this outside of 2 menus deep.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, that's actually my complaint about using the MIDI on here. Is it's like going a menu deep. Like every time you want to use a MIDI sequencer, because it has 4 MIDI sequencing tracks,
right.
And you get it like before we had scale mode and stuff on Digitact and all that. It was only in the Digitone, and the Digitone was like people love the Digitone for sequencing their external gear because of that, and because it had more of a there was something about the keyboard that was more interesting.
Right. Yeah, so the modulation setup, like basically at a high level, this lets you assign different parameters to this matrix, and then the velocity of your triggers or your notes that you're playing on a velocity sensitive keyboard will affect those parameters. So like a classic one is like opening up the filter more, or like you can send more into the drive circuit. You could send it into the delay. You can have it be additive or subtractive as well. So you can make it do less delay for higher velocity, stuff like that. So that's really opened up my writing and my composition on the Digitone recently, is being able to use that. So like definitely like that's a way to transition from something that sounds kind of flat, like to something that's more expressive and feels a lot more alive. So
Good tip.
yeah, it's one that I'm trying to remember a lot myself. But yeah, so we had we didn't listen to that one. We were listening to this bass sound.
This sound much like very FM. Very clearly an FM sound. Sometimes the FM side of things is kind of hidden because of the subtractive nature of the Digitone. But that one, very present to me.
Nice, I like that. And yeah, then we have like this is getting into kind of like the noisy territory. We'll notice the feedback is pretty high here, so that's kind of where that, if you were to, I think the ARP is on, but you can kind of hear it in the...
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's, definitely another nice kind of like textural thing you can play with.
Do you play with the ARP step length much and like offset the actual...
Yeah, I've done it. I've done it here.
Okay.
The length is 16, but I do offset it. It's hard because sometimes you can be tempted to play a chord, and that doesn't always really work super great when you're doing offsets, because like all of a sudden the offset puts your... Yeah, like if you're changing from a major to a minor chord, then it's just like a totally whack. But yeah, it is a nice way. Like I know I really like that video you made on the
bass line.
Yeah, baseline design with the arpeggiator. It's great. It's a great tool, just even for like repeating rhythms, like we talked about earlier with percussion sounds, or like even just like a simple melody where you just want to be able to have one note held and have it change. I think the ARP is pretty cool. I think it could be better. Like there could be some other cool things.
The Octatrack ARP has got some extra features in it where, and I use the Octatrack ARP to sequence my other pieces of gear to get, and I record the sequence from it. But the advantage that it has the same ARP, but it has a scale modifier in the ARP, and you can parameter lock it for some of the aspects of the ARP.
Yeah, I remember seeing can't remember his name.
Max Marco?
No. Why can't I remember? Kenny Zhao.
Oh yeah.
I remember seeing Kenny Zhao do some really cool stuff with arpeggiator on the Octatrack. And kind of wishing that some of those things would have been...
I learned a lot from Kenny when I was getting started with the Octatrack.
Yeah. Really cool guy. I don't see him use the Octatrack much anymore. I know he's still using it in live performance, but I mean, like a lot of folks, like once...
people get fatigued on instruments.
Well, and he was like doing the same thing, like where he was doing office hour streams every day, and I think he just got burned out of doing the YouTube thing. But still making really cool music with the Octatrack and
make you
other
tired.
stuff. Yeah. Guess we kind of have two sounds in here that are sort of the same. Or this one might have been a second bass. I am kind of stacking things in here. I was actually watching when I was playing this, like some of the triggers in here. There's like this little, like we were looking at the track for the for like the main synth sound, but there's like a little rim shot in that same track. So yeah, you've got to find the space. Like my drum track for whatever reason wasn't, although it doesn't have that much going on in it. For some reason, I wanted to put it in there, I guess. So,
well, I mean, you got to put it where it's not being occupied on another sequencer step. Yeah, that's like one of those things that's so cool about the Digitone and the voice stealing aspect of it, and the way you write on it's just so unique to the Digitone versus every other piece of like Elektron equipment. That is that you can slide a note on top of another note to have a different timbre in the same sequence. Kind of like what you're talking about with saving the arpeggiator to a preset sound or to a sound and then locking that in a step. You can just do it with a note and then just move it over and it will sit on top of it.
Right.
And instead of doing like a parameter lock with 1 of 2 or 2 of 2 like you would on the other boxes, you literally just have them play on top of each other.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, it's great.
So do you ever use the song mode?
No. I've used song mode once.
You have used it?
I have used it. I used it for a video that I made with Shannon, my partner, my wife. We did a cover of Harvest Moon by Neil Young, kind of in like a drum and bass style.
Okay.
And I was doing some pretty heavy like modulation and stuff on modular, And I wanted the Digitact to be able to just kind of like do its thing. So I programmed song mode for that. I haven't used it in a live performance yet. I don't know how I feel about it.
I have never used it in a live performance.
Yeah, like I think there are some parts about it could be cool. Like there's definitely some people out there who are using it for like using it as something beyond just like pressing play and going. Like they're actually using it as a creative tool. I know
with like changing the tempos and turning the delay up really high.
Yeah. So that could be really
type stuff.
Yeah, that could be really interesting. And then like I need to experiment with if you can kind of like, because I would like to be able to have a mix of like what I do already and then sort of like a pre-planned like setup would be pretty cool. I'm kind of wishing like that. I was thinking about it the other day about like I kind of wish that the Elektron sequencers had sort of like a follow action, kind of like Ableton does, like where once a pattern plays through once and then it changes to X pattern.
Right.
That would get really complicated within the
new
context of
trig condition in Digitact 2 called last that triggers when you queue up your next pattern.
Oh my god.
Or doesn't trigger when you queue up your next pattern.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not.
Oh man, don't tell me that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe we'll maybe our prayers will be answered and we'll get that
on
somewhere
Digitone?
else.
Well, I mean, if they come out with the Digitone 2 in the next year or two or whatever,
Yeah.
it'll 100% be in there. There's no way. I mean,
Yeah,
it
I would
should
hope so.
get added to all. I don't know why it's not being added to it right now.
Yeah, that's
Like,
true.
it's
It's
just
like
a
new
trig
trig
condition.
conditions would be great. I know that there's some other ones too that seem really cool, like where it can just be like just on like the inverse of the bar ones that we have now, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
That's
would be
all
really
been
cool.
added to it too.
Yeah.
All the 1 of 2s now have inverted 1 of 2s.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Because there's a trick to doing it in the old way
Mm-hmm.
where you parameter lock a condition right before it so that it triggers it.
Yeah.
Right? Which is cool too. Okay, more questions for
Okay.
you. Are you a pattern mutes or a global mutes person?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It depends on how I've written the patterns. If I've gone like what we were talking about earlier, like if I've gone more of and I guess it depends on like what kind of mode of writing I was in when I was writing the given track. If I'm like prepping for a live set and I'm writing all new music, like I'm probably going to use global mutes because I'm going to write all the tracks to have like the same elements in the same tracks. Like on the Digitone or the Digitact, I usually have a process where it's like, I have it on the Digitone too, where it's like 1 is kick, 2 is snare or clap, 3 is hi-hat, 4 is like auxiliary percussion or clap, 5 is bass line, 6, 7, and 8 are like chords, samples,
Right.
whatever.
I'm pretty similar.
So
to
like
that.
every pattern, every new track is basically going to have that going on in it. So
I can reliably
use global mutes because it's like, well, if I have 1 muted here, then the kick's not going to be in the other thing. I can bring that in. When I'm getting more involved in sort of writing patterns for transitions or for other like musical effects like that, like the pattern mutes are more effective. This set I used the global mutes for the same reason. Also, pattern mutes suck on the Digitone.
Yeah.
Because you have to do like this weird, there's like weird button combos and it just gets into a weird state. So yeah, I'm kind of a both guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weird. Interesting to me.
Ivar has a cool setup when he's using Digitact and Digitone where he uses
the mutes from the
Digitact. But you can only use global mutes. You can't do it pattern mutes that way. So I think that's actually why I kind of got.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense why that would stick with you too.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I started when I first got the Digitone because I was kind of trying to do the two together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
When you're writing a track, you probably start with like. Well, I mean, we're on an FM synthesizer. I am imagining you either start with a chord progression, or you start with like a little melodic line, and you start building on top of that. After you're done with that process, is it for you the same as it is for me, which is a copy pattern, paste pattern, edit, copy pattern, paste pattern, edit, copy pattern, paste pattern, edit? Or do you start a pattern from scratch again, just knowing what key and tempo you need to be in?
Oh no, I do the first one. Absolutely. Unless I'm doing like a full change up, but even then I'll still like I'll copy the pattern over as like a basis and then and then kind of like take one element out or like clear a sequence or something like that so that I can edit it. But yeah, I kind of like try to build the first pattern when I'm writing. I mean, let's be honest, I mostly write techno, so it's like starting with the 4 on the floor kick, of some variety, of some flavor. So
Does that
yeah,
occupy its own track, your kick?
oh, I
kick
didn't
track so
explain.
that
I
you
didn't
can
explain
take a
how I
kick
laid.
out, bring kick
I
in?
didn't explain how I lay out the digitone. 4 is always drums. 3 is always bass, and then 2 is usually like the arp or the chord or the texture, and 1 is usually like the melody. So yeah,
So different to me because I would have went the other way around. I would have went drums, bass, chord, or melody, and then chords at the end.
yeah. I don't know. Like it was like the first time I was sitting down with the digitone, I just kind of like wrote
Just
it out,
stuck.
and it's just like it's been that for forever.
So all the drums, so you don't mute.
Except for like the random ride.
Oh, except
you
for
know,
like the random
rim
percussive
shots and
sounds.
stuff. There is something interesting that I do. I can't remember if I did it in any of these tracks. It didn't really seem like it, but
That's where this high pass filter must be real important to you to take out
Take out
the
the
kick,
kick.
since you're not actually taking the kick out.
yeah, there's a couple things I'll do here. I don't think it was in this track. Was it in this one? Maybe I'm just lying and it wasn't in any of these. So something that I do often is I set the 4 kick triggers. I set them to 100%, or I set them to
Oh
not
yeah, we could use a trick to fill.
not fill.
Not fill.
Yeah, not fill. So then I can take the kick out, or like I can introduce it by
Yeah, I
holding.
don't know why I
Yeah,
didn't
holding
even-
that.
Of course, that's what you would do.
And then the other thing that I do is like when I have, I talked about using one trigger for a parameter locked sound that it has inherently it has an arpeggiator built into the sound. Like I've exported it into the sound pool or into the digitone memory with the arpeggiator turned on. So even though the drum track doesn't have arpeggiator turned on, that sound will have the arpeggiator turned on. So, but I'll set that trigger to, well, I won't set it to anything actually, but I'll turn the global chance for the track to 0. And then I can bring it in, like it's almost like another unmute
Right.
by turning it to 100%. So
Oh, that's different. I've never done that.
yeah.
Cool.
So it's like that's digitone only. Like I don't ever have to really do that on the Digitact unless I'm going super crazy with triggers and I need to like have some way to ferret some of that stuff out. And obviously that's less of an issue on Digitact too. But yeah, for digitone specifically, when I'm doing percussion, like track 4 usually has an element, some sort of like cymbal or hi-hat or offbeat kind of rhythm that comes in. And if I want to like build up instead of making another pattern where I add that, I would just like hide it in there and turn it up. So
I love that idea.
yeah, I don't know. Again, like maybe something in the process that could be improved. But
You truly are eking out every little droplet out of the dig. That's why I thought you were such a great person to bring on here to talk about the Digitone, because you really have like gotten so much out of 4 tracks, and you're not using the MIDI sequencer for anything. Like you could add more instruments.
I could.
Have another. You have sequencer tracks. Like you still have a brain here that could do even more. I do like the that you mentioned like right at the beginning. You're like, I don't. This is sync. They're playing together, but I don't. There's not even. Is there clock? You are.
yeah, there's clock and run.
Okay.
To the PAMs. So like that one this track had this.
Right, but this is a percussion thing. Like,
Oh
you're
yeah,
just-
I mean I just dialed the note in and I'm sending a gate.
I heard
signal.
you like during your performance. You were
Yeah, I
like,
was kind of out of tune because I was using your fancy. Matthew has a really fancy dust blower for
yeah,
electronics, and I think I hit the pitch knob a little bit. I'm
I
like,
need
that's
that.
a little flat.
fancy dust blower because I just get on everything.
Oh yeah, same.
I'm
I'm a
disgusting.
dusty boy.
I'm a dusty.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting too is that we haven't really looked at. We talked a little bit about it, but like about like extracting everything is if you look at the voice page, there's actually the Digitone will put a box around all these tracks. Like this indicates all 8 tracks, but like there are moments where I'm like at 7 voices. I think in some of these other patterns I might actually hit it. I'm usually pretty good about it, but I mean, that's something that you have to like really be concerned with. And then it's like, from there, it's like Just a Boy cover Dusty edition. Heck yeah. I want to do the Dusty Boys remix.
See dust blower affiliate link.
The after you get to that point, like if you hit all 8 voices, it's not the end of the world, but you have to start strategically designing your sounds to be able to be like, okay, well, what am I okay with going away?
Right.
Because sometimes it sounds cool. Voice stealing can sound actually
Yeah, it can be really nice.
Yeah, it can be really nice. But yeah, and then like the other thing too is we were talking about in sound design, like you start to have those considerations where it's like, well, like the unison on the Digitone sounds sick. Like if we go back to that bass that we had going, I turned it down. Like if you turn the unison on this, and then you like that's insane.
That's huge.
Yeah. But you're using 4 voices for one bass sound, you know what I mean? Or
that's when the Digitone really is being a synthesizer and not a groove box.
Right, exactly.
In these moments.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like I want to have an 8 voice unison.
Whoa, it sounds like a comb filter.
Yeah.
You brought up so much stuff. Yeah, you used up all the voices.
Yeah, exactly. Just like just bricking the Digitone. Yeah, but absolutely make this sound and sample it.
Yeah,
like
it's so big. It's so wide. It's like literally.
Yeah.
It feels bigger than stereo.
Yeah.
Like 3D and.
Yeah, we've gone beyond.
We've gone back into the quantum realm. You brought up so many different things that you do in your Digitone, and I've had a Digitone for longer than you, and you use your Digitone in a deeper way than I ever have. To be honest, like there's so many things you brought up where like I haven't memorized what algorithms do what. Like for me, I just turn the algorithm button until it's like it's on an algorithm. I'm like, whatever, I don't care what algorithm it is. I'm just gonna make crazy sounds and I'm gonna do stuff until I like it. But like you're like algorithm 2. The B side is on this side, the A side is on this side, and I can treat them in this way. And that's not something I've ever even considered.
Yeah, I mean, like I can't take credit for that because like I've learned that from the community, But
nobody gets credit for anything anyway.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what
true.
I mean? It's
like
true. We're all sharing.
Yeah, no, it's great. It like it's not necessarily that like I know the, and this is the thing, like you don't have to be an expert on how FM synthesis absolutely works. Like, does knowing about it help you provide you?
It's like music theory.
Yeah, it's like music theory. Does it provide you a helpful framework? Absolutely. We were just talking before the stream. Like, I can go back to Ableton now and use the operator synth, and like, oh, I know how to make the sound. It's not necessarily that I know how it works, but I know how to make the sounds that I want to make. It's not just an entire mystery to me. And I think that's what I've learned about from gathering information from different sources, from my own personal experience, is that like I have the confidence to go in and be like, I want to make a Reese bass. I want to make an acid. Like I finally made a really cool sounding acid bass on the Digitone. I was like, yes.
Can we hear that?
Yeah, you can hear it.
Yeah, show me that.
I'm just gonna open up a different project.
Yeah, I would love to hear it if you are able to share any more music with us.
Yeah, like maybe I can play you one half of a Sad Boys track.
Sad Boys is Toby's other music project that he does with Mike Ariza, who's the moderator here.
Yeah, so actually, yeah, here we go. So this is half of a Sad Boys track. Michael and I played this set at Selector Records here in Seattle, and Michael's doing all the percussion. I'm doing chords.
Oh, that's how you guys
texture
split up the duties.
Yeah, we've only
off with that.
We've only performed a couple times together, but like we decided to do it this way. Michael's just so good at making kicks. It's
Kickmaster.
It's disgusting, and he had that fancy new Digitac 2 as well. So but yeah, so yeah, we've got a couple things going on here. I think we've got pattern mutes going.
You know what you would really like is an M8 because it has a 4 operator FM synth in it, and you would just know how to use it.
I don't know how to use a tracker though.
It's the same as Elektron.
I've heard that, and I recently just started. I don't know if you've seen, but Christoph is writing. Hair Shield is writing a tracker
He's coming
for.
on next week.
Okay, yeah, look forward to next week. I've been beta testing the Shield tracker, even though I don't know anything about trackers.
His tracker is way harder than that MA. It's way different. It's different,
right?
But I mean, it's harder because his is like more old school tracker style, and the MA is it's like Game Boy. Like, it's just easier to play on.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to check one out for sure. But
he has an FM synth.
His does not have an FM synth. It has some kind of synth.
Does?
It does.
Oh, I mean, I'm gonna get to know it real well.
It's cool. It's cool. I mean, all I know about it, like I've played with it a couple times. It has jungle breaks loaded into it because it's Christoph. And I chopped up aiming breaks and it sounded really cool.
It comes with jungle breaks.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Does it come with Elden Ring? Shadow of the Earth tree?
I wish.
No,
it's a bundle, a Steam bundle.
A Steam bundle with Shield tracker.
Yeah, so this is the Sad Boys track. So again, we've got a little kind of a gentle pad here.
Sounds awesome. I'm really making me miss my Digitone a lot right now.
So I think I'm doing, I am doing what I was kind of talking about here. You kind of got two notes happening at once, a fifth.
Yeah, it sounds like
so if you look at this sequence, I'm only playing two notes here, but you get a whole.
Yeah, we get
a whole chord.
Oh, that sounded like more than if it's an offset of, if you're playing two notes and each one offsets it by a fifth, then you're getting more than just two notes, and you're getting a fifth from the second note as well.
Right. Yeah. So you're getting four notes.
So you're getting that to me sounded like a major seven, or is it a minor seven?
We could do the music math if we wanted to, but
we don't want to know music math today.
Oh, speak of the devil.
Hey, Shield's here.
So this is like utilizing that technique I was talking about using the FM to get a couple extra notes out. So like I have these cool chord sequences, but I'm only having to use two notes instead of four to get the chords out. So that's what's going on here in this track.
It sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's like a that sounded weird. I don't know why I did that.
It sounded good to me.
Oh, it's just re-triggering. That is one thing you have to look out for. Sometimes like the
pops and clicks.
With the Digitone, like sometimes you just like get weird like this snappy sound.
Yeah.
Like when envelopes, I think I've actually, with sounds like this that have a longer release, I think it's actually the release and like something about the amplitude envelope. I think it's the release envelope freaking out. Like when it's still in the release cycle and it starts over again and goes down to zero, you hear a little audible click. But again, in the context of like techno electro, like you're not really gonna hear that.
Yeah,
so.
you're not gonna hear that at a show. You might hear it on a record.
Right.
And then you're like, then you are mad at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, at a show.
This is the figuring out change length.
Right.
Yeah, it's 20 out of 32 sequence here. So that's just kind of like a little like woodblock sound, kind of like enharmonic vibe. This was kind of like written shortly after Steven played a set, Project 32 played a set at Kremwork, where he was playing with the DFAM and made kind of like these sort of like FM-y, like metal.
Inspired you a bit?
Yeah, no, it inspired a lot of people, myself included. But like, yeah, it's like, again, thinking outside of the box, like, yes, this does happen to kind of fit in the key center that we're in, but like it doesn't have to, and it could sound really cool if it didn't. So again, no drums here because this was like Michael was on the drums here. This is what
you got, the noise sweep.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a Ybot patch or not, but I do that sometimes when I have a free track.
Yeah.
Just have a nice little.
That was a good noise.
Yeah, just a nice little ambience.
Very phasey sounding.
Yeah, this is called It Is Acid. That's kind of like an inside Basement State joke because they have like a sticker that says, "Is it acid?" So I finally. Yeah, so that's the pattern meets. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with that as a acid bass sound.
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds like a sawtooth with some high resonance and little plucks. One thing you should lock into your acid preset is trig length 32. I don't know if you did that already. But if you set this to 32... Oh, you did! Of course. Yeah.
I watched that stream. Actually, that helped me unlock it because it was about the sound design, but it was also about how you use the triggers.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, the length, like that's how I was getting the slides. It's like any...
I shouldn't even have said that because it sounded like 30-second notes. That's probably why I even mentioned that.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I for the links that I wanted to, or for the triggers that I wanted to slide, I made them longer, so the portamento activates, and then I think I did, yeah, I set up, this is one of the, like right after I set up velocity mod as well, yeah. So
Oh, look at it jumping around.
Yep, so yeah, I'm using 50 and 100, so yeah, I'm sending stuff into the drive, I'm opening up the filter envelope more, I'm adding a little bit of resonance, and opening the amp decay envelope a little bit, so.
Can you leave this playing and give us some crunchy distortion?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna turn the... Yeah, let's do it.
Shield, I said for a moment, I was like, that the Shield tracker is harder than the M8. I have no idea. I haven't used the track yet, so disregard that. It just looks more complex visually.
So here's the same acid line with just the master
distortion?
Yeah, digitone distortion. So master overdrive is all the way up, and the drive is all the way up.
It's got a nice squelch there.
So let's... I'm gonna change... Oh wow, I was in the wrong preset that whole time. That's funny. Let's just go to the... default preset, so we can just do a little demo of the analog heat. So this is the clean boost, saturation, enhancement, mid drive, that's the rough crunch, classic distortion, and you can do...
This filter is so scary
Yeah.
to me.
Scary?
So scary.
Oh yeah, I saw you. I saw you grit your teeth for a second. Yeah, we gotta be careful of Matt's ears.
Well, mostly I just mean yes, because of my ears, but also because the resonance on it goes up to like...
Oh yeah, a billion.
Yeah, it goes like space level.
That one's sick.
That's added so many harmonics to it. It made a
Yeah,
fifth now.
we're in like Gabber territory.
Very Gabber territory.
And then finally,
The circuits are so different. Round fuzz to high gain is like just so vastly different circuits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Kinga wants to, or someone wants to, yeah, Kinga wants to hear the whole mix through the last four.
Whoa.
Those harmonics are crazy.
That is...
think I like classic distortion best for the
For this.
for the acid specifically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounded good.
Yeah.
Don't you wish so this would be a really great time to have Digitone keys. Then you could send this voice out to its own distortion unit.
Yep. That'd be cool.
That would be sick.
That would be really sick.
And then have your clean sound still clean, but then this doing its thing.
Yeah. That would be really sick. I would love that.
Analog heat. So you were said at the beginning of the stream, you're like, I'm using analog heat to do this, this, this. And it was like, you named off a bunch of things. One of them you said was sidechain kind of emulation. Because I know you were doing some of it here with the envelope, right?
I may have been.
You were doing some
yeah,
ducking there.
I do that. I
You
do
were
that sometimes.
Also ducking here.
Yeah, I can kind of show, and I'll actually go to the correct preset. Heavy comp Ybot. Let's see. Oh, here's the first. This is the first Sad Boys set, and I actually have some percussion in it. Okay, yeah, that works. So yeah, the way to look at this, so we have the envelope follower. The follow amount is like 16.5. It's got a tiny bit of attack and a little bit of delay, and then you can see the trig there. So it is adjusting the drive. So it ducks the drive is how that works.
That's how the pseudo compression works too.
Yeah, so very similar. So the drive amount is very high in the patch, and then it ducks it down.
Just brings
So
a little volume.
yeah, and then you can get a little bit greasier with it if you change the filter dirt is a great parameter. It just gets a little.
The filter dirt parameter?
Yeah.
Where did that come from? I didn't even know that was a thing. I've never seen the dirt parameter.
Yeah, right?
What?
Yeah, it's on the filter page. Second filter page.
This is, I mean, heat plus effects, I don't even know how to use it.
Press filter twice. No, on the left.
Hello?
Is that, oh, flow. Yeah, I don't know how to get to the filter page on the heat effects.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, so for this, like, you kind of dial in, like, how heavy you want it based on, like, pumping the drive up. And then the wet level is always at 100%. The dry wet is at 100% wet as well. So it's a pretty big difference between on and off in the levels and the levels that you get out. So
Probably,
this is all the way off.
Wow, this adds so much to this.
Yeah.
It's not just volume. Like, obviously loudness is going to change
Yeah.
your perception, but, like, it really does. Like,
Yeah.
This sounds great. You're a master of these chord progressions. They're
Thank you.
really good.
Thank you.
I know, like, there's, like, a tendency to, like, when you're programming a chord progression to, like, put it on the one of every 4
Yeah.
bars or something, and it sounds so robotic. But these, like, faster do-do-do, they sound, that's just nice rhythms for the chords.
So this is actually a great pattern to show off like what I do with like
with
his filter. Yeah, like
Okay.
I just did it. So like you kind of let it run through. This is like as much like the tech for it, but also like knowing when to do it.
Yeah, well, that's the skill.
It's really interesting because we put this. I'll say it afterwards. But. Yeah, so as easy as that. It's interesting because when Michael and I play together as Sad Boys, I try to put this in the middle. So we use this as our master output.
I saw.
He has used the Octatrack before, and maybe someday we'll do the do it in the performance template, and maybe I can learn it. But it's funny because we'll both reach for it at different times and use it in different ways. Like I feel like intrinsically like,
you mean you guys
okay,
are sharing it during the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that last time.
Yeah.
high pass filters. I try and tell this people like all you need for a good, like if you have just a delay at the end of your chain, like this into a delay, and then you just do high pass and delay at the same time.
Yep.
That's all you need.
Oh yeah.
To play like have a great performance effect.
Yeah. Oh, this has a crazy bass sound in it.
That's sick. Oh, it's like a really filtered Reese bass. That's monstrous. Man.
Yeah, I'm sending a square wave to the synth amount or the level of,
and you have the phase offset on it too.
So yeah.
Get like a,
yeah, so
it's like not with the same rhythm of the hats.
Yeah.
Or whatever those are, perks.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like doing weird FM percussion.
Sounds awesome.
And dub chords, which is also, I mean, the Digitone is so good at that. So good at that. So, yeah, that's a little.
I really like that bass. That kick is so soft. So good.
This one?
I love this kick.
Oh, thank you. Let's see. What can we tell you about this kick?
Those are my kind. Like, those are the kind. I love like tennis ball kicks where it literally sounds like a tennis ball like being thrown against the floor. And then these ones where I don't even know what it is. It's like somebody punching a couch or something.
Oh, that's a really good analogy. I love that. Here's an example of the hi-hat thing that I was talking about. Oh, nope. Never mind. I just have them together.
I like that one.
I can illustrate it really easily, though.
Let me get you pen and paper.
No, not like that.
EZBOT jokes. Dad jokes.
So this one I know is... Oh. I bumped it back. So yeah, I did the thing you were talking about. I put it...
Oh, yeah.
Because I already had a kick there, so I bumped it back. The one thing about that arpeggiator trick is if you're doing something that's really locked to the grid, like your art pattern is really locked to the grid, even that little tiny 23 3/84ths of a, or whatever that's indicating, off. It's just slightly off. And sometimes that can be good. Like
right.
It's like, you know, you're doing like
if it's creating like a swing or something.
Yeah, you're doing like a Dilla techno somehow. Like your offbeat hi-hat is just like slightly delayed. But yeah, so we can leave this one to 0 and then set everything else
Dilla techno.
Yeah, to 100%. Not Phil.
I like there's 2 kicks. A soft.
I think they're the same. Yeah, they're the same kick. I've just
filtered one a little bit or something.
What did I do?
Pretty
oh yeah, just the bass filter actually.
Nice.
It looks like, and maybe I changed the
the filter
literally just the bass
is
filter.
Part of the sound design there.
Yeah, and this was like a Michael inspired kick. Like he does stuff like this all the time, but he would have like 3 more. He would have one on the top that has like a snappy transient, and then there would be a rumble in there too, which I can't do all that on the Digitone.
I have to get Michael up in here.
Yeah, you should do a kick design masterclass with Michael Riza. Yeah, so what I was talking about is, so we've got a kick in here, but like track 4, as you know, I said that's all my drums. So if I want to unmute my hi-hat.
Oh, clever.
Yeah.
Clever.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff that I love. That like this is what my like YouTube channel was all about, is finding these little ideas.
Yeah.
Like this that you can, I don't know, just add to spice up your performances.
Yeah.
This is a really good one.
Yeah.
Especially for the Digitone.
Yeah, and you don't have to use it with an arpeggiated thing. Like I could easily just have had triggers on 311, 7, and 15 and set those kept those at 0. And then it's kind of cool too, because you can go, I'm just using the extremes of 0 and 100, but you could go 75 and have just like a something come in just every once in a while.
Yeah, that's a really great. But even 0 and 100 is really useful.
Yeah.
Maybe even more useful. Wow, clever.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to hold the fill thing. I never even like I've never thought of this.
Yep. But you have to remember to do it. I forget all the time. I've done like probably 3 or 4 performances where I'm like, wait, didn't I write a hi-hat part for this track? And then it's like, oh, you didn't turn it to 100%.
Yeah, some people write, I don't know if you're one of these people that like write all the notes about like what to do during their songs. Because I don't either. I'm just like, I just play it a bunch of times and then I go play the show.
Yeah, so that's
to do all this stuff.
Yeah, so that's
skill in itself.
That's a good example of that.
Oh, this is really nice.
I just saw it, but this one actually does max out the voices, I think. Yep, there it goes. I can hear exactly which one it is too. That's supposed to have another note with it.
Oboe sound. I like how you got those kicks that have the transient in them, and then some without the top of the kick. Right there. You ever hear it make those kick sounds? I don't know how to describe it better than like having some gum, like chewed up gum, putting it on plastic and then pulling it off the plastic. It goes like, and there's like this popping sound that happens that sometimes you can hear on a kick where it's like the transient is, the top of the kick happens right after the kick triggers, so it's soft, then pop, like soft pop, soft pop.
Whoa.
Sounds really nice. It's a great sound. You can do it on here.
Can we expect to see that in a sample pack? Or are you gonna make the soft pop kick for me?
I don't know. No.
Okay.
No way.
I mean,
just like get lost in trying to. I haven't played on my Digitone in a long time.
That's fair. Yeah, I think what we were hearing was that chord, which I didn't do the trick with all the voices on it. I think that's taking 3.
That's a nice sound. Is that a LFO on the ratio?
Yeah. No.
Sounds like it. I knew it's a square wave.
Yeah, square wave on the.
Oh, it's doing like the arc trick.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool sounding. Whoa, Tron.
It's kind of intense. But the filter is doing a lot of.
Yeah.
Filtering out a lot of the sparklies.
So sounds so nice.
Yeah.
Dude, you could get away with playing a show with just your Digitone.
Only the Digitone.
Only the Digitone. I would love to see that just as like a. I know, like people do that on YouTube all the time, but actually going and playing a live set that's like a techno-inspired set with just Digitone, that's like a whole nother feat.
I want to say my first Modbang show was actually. Oh no, I had the.
You had Digitech as well, right?
No, I only had Digitone, but I just bought a microcosm. And I was like, I'm going to run the Digitone through the microcosm. It was a disaster.
You know who did a really good job with that? Jeremy Blake. He does a really great job. But I remember like the first time I saw Jeremy play live, he had the microcosm, everything running into it. And then I don't know what he does. He uses it for like a transition or something. Like live loops or something. I don't know. You have to ask him, but. Well, that sounds nice.
Trying to see if I can find. Oh, this is actually a. If you want to hear what a Digitone project that got corrupted, or if you forgot to save it and you control all your FM, this is what it sounds like.
How sad, man. Not the sounds, but just that experience is so bad.
This is pretty sad too, because this is actually my album that I made with the Digitone.
Thank God you recorded the album.
Thank God I recorded the album. Yeah, this is like
you could just DJ it at least.
Yeah, this is. Yeah, let's forget about that one.
That sounds nice. Yeah, control, man.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, I honestly kind of stay away from it on the Digitone.
It's like the most effective on the Digitone too.
I know.
That's also why to stay away.
Well, I mean, I've had like a really bad experience.
Yeah,
so,
your album getting.
Yeah, my album got destroyed. So I mean, it's okay. It was I recovered some of it and I copied some of it to a different pattern. But yeah, I that's another thing that honestly I don't really do that much is control all. Like Again, I just learned about like reloading the mute state and the state of the project from the project
Right.
recently. So like I know that there's kind of like some recourse like if things go wrong, but yeah, I know it definitely makes it more complicated for myself, like as a performer, like to not use it or like to do it kind of like separately. But sometimes like I guess that's just like the control freak in me. It's just like,
Well, I mean, you're doing what needs to be done to have your music sound dynamic without risking destroying your music. To me, it makes sense. I honestly stay away from control mostly when I play it, except for on the Syntact. It's so easy to use because it's mostly I'll just use it on like filters and just open them all up.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
just, like,
I mean,
out.
that's the thing too. Like with like, I don't know. You say it's the most effective on the Digitone, but it's also like can be the most destructive, right?
Yeah,
like
that's why it's so effective.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Because it has such a versatile.
a wide range.
Such
But
a wide
like,
range of.
I think that's where something because I think the Digitac 2 has selective control all, right? You can choose what you
Yeah,
because
that's new
that
to
would be
Digitone 2.
insane on the Digitone because like for me it's
Well,
like
you can fake it if you lock in each step.
every single thing.
Every single step.
Well, actually, I mean, my biggest case for that I think would be the bass drum, which for techno wouldn't be that bad. You do one trig and then you copy it 4 times and you're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's the biggest thing. Like if you leave that unchecked and you're like control-alling FM stuff, all of a sudden your bass drum now sounds like I don't know.
Sounds like a whoop whoop whoop.
Yeah, like a soft pop, a piece of bubble gum played as a bass or something like that. I don't know. I don't know. Use your bubblegum example. So I'm just thinking.
I
about
don't know.
gum now.
I don't.
Do you have any gum?
I do.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
After the stream.
We could try it out.
Okay.
We'll compare them.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Let's have a field recording session.
Dude, I haven't done that in years. Considering how many field recorders I have.
Should put them to use.
I know. Well, dude, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark, and that's like where I usually stop. Yeah, we could really. I feel like we could probably. Me and Toby have known each other for a long time now, and played a lot of shows together. Toby is one of the folks who runs Modbang with me, the live events, and is essential to those continuing to function. Honestly, because it's so hard to do by yourself. Like Toby does so much work, so very grateful to you for that. But I'm also just grateful to have you come on stream and show me so many new tips and tricks on Digitone.
Yeah.
So this is crazy.
Yeah,
Like, you opened my eyes to stuff I had no idea, never thought of. And I consider myself somebody who like goes pretty hardcore on Elektron stuff.
Yeah.
And you showed me so many new things, which makes me just think about how we learn what we need to learn to get the job done. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to learn it all.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking about the music theory thing.
Exactly.
You don't need to know music theory to do this. I also went to school for music, but I don't use my music theory knowledge much in my electronic music writing.
Yeah.
More so with my guitar.
Yeah.
Even so, then
It's the same thing. Like learn how to make what you want to make with what you've got. Like it's like
Experiment
that's like
too.
my anti-gas thing too, right? It's just like, well, I'm kind of asking myself that. It's like I have these instruments that I really like. I like my modular synth, modular synth is hard because we all know what a absolute like throwing gasoline on a pile of dollar bills modular synths are. But like for the Digitone and the Digitac, like it's like what kind of sound do I want to make? What kind of vibe do I want to make? And or like I hear something, I'm like, how can I do that with what I have? Like I think that's a really sane approach to that kind of thing, and really creatively expanding. And like some of the best albums that you've ever listened to, like the person didn't know music theory, the person didn't have anything more than a tape recorder. Like some of the best albums that are ever recorded were just like,
well, another like anti-example of this, and I don't mean this in a negative way towards Jake. This is about Jacob Collier, but like Jacob Collier is like the music theory guru, and if you listen to some of his music, you're like, this is over theorized. Where I'm like, oh my gosh, he went so hard on that. And then folks who don't know anything about music theory make music, and it's just so lovely.
At the same time, I would challenge that too, because sometimes he's like, this sounds better if this E is sharp. Like, and that's because of his ears. Like he hears
when
like
he's
like crazy,
he's
but like he's all about like, it doesn't really matter what this is. Like, that this is incorrect. Like this needs a little bit of this,
right?
And like just add it. And like because he's very free and open with his music, I think. Definitely like sometimes over over the top, like it makes your brain
Maybe
kinda
it's
crazy.
just for my ears
but
sometimes.
yeah. No, I absolutely hear what you're saying, but I think there's a good lesson in that too. That it's like, but also like use the knowledge you have
Or don't use it.
freely, or don't, or absolutely don't use it,
Or just ignore it.
exactly.
Yeah. Go to school to learn music theory so you
Yeah.
can avoid all that you've learned.
Yeah.
Hey, look, an ad's about to play. Let's turn that off.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so yeah, the Digitone music, like I'm definitely gonna be playing more stuff with Digitone in the future. I have a whole album that I made on Digitone. It's called Operator. All the tracks, it's like 4 tracks. They were all 4 or 5. They were all written on the Digitone. It took me like a year and a half. That was like my first.
Such a good album.
Thank you.
I have it sitting up on my shelf right
Oh,
there.
Matt's got the tape. There's a couple. It was a limited tape release. I think there's 2 that are left. They're both at Selector Records in Seattle. So if you want to buy them in
So
person,
people can still get them?
they can.
Sick.
But
You can
that's
get
the only
digital one anyway.
That's the only place. Oh, well, I don't know. I was actually like, what's stopping me from doing a reprint? Like that would be kind of
why
cool.
not?
So maybe I'll make some more tapes. I don't know. If people want more tapes, follow me on Bandcamp, message me and
I'll
tell me
put
you want
a
more
link
tapes.
in those so that people can find your
Cool.
tunes.
Yeah, and I've got a new track coming out this weekend actually on the Mystery Circles.
This weekend?
This weekend.
Oh,
yeah.
sick.
Yeah, on the 7th. It's I don't think there's any Digitone on it. But it was written on the Digitact, so like same family. But yeah, I'm releasing a single with Mystery Circles. It comes out on the 7th. It'll be on streaming and on their Bandcamp, my Bandcamp. It's called Deception Pass. It's cool, kind of like UK Garage
Sick.
track. Yeah, it was written on the Digitact for January actually.
Nice.
I have an old video. I'll probably repost it on my Instagram of like the original track. It was all just Digitact, like nothing,
Awesome.
nothing other than. I think I had the analog key going, but
Well, that doesn't. I mean,
yeah. But yeah, I'm playing with the Digitone in sets when Michael and I play together as Sad Boys. And yeah, I just love bringing it out. So
yeah, I love
Yeah.
what you do with it.
thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah, this was really great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody. My name is Matthew, aka EZBOT. This is Toby, goes by Ybot. And this has been another Elektron talk, essentially, which is, I've been doing them for a long time now, and I'm very excited to have gotten to have you. We're very happy to have gotten to have you on
thanks.
this stream finally, and you taught me so much, so thank you so much. And check out Toby's music, as you mentioned, on Bandcamp, and we'll have links in the video description. You want to support this channel, visit patreon.com/EZBOT. Also, leave a nice comment. Tell Toby how awesome his tunes were. Thank him for all the knowledge that he shared. And I'll see you next week for another stream. Later.